It's good to be with you again for considering some very important legislation for our city's future. I will be speaking to you twice tonight, very briefly, to share from the administration a few points. First, about these two bonds under consideration. I know you've introduced one, and then second, about the local option income tax, and I really appreciate your attention. You have before you one formally and another soon to come 5-year bond of just over $5 million. Both those bond ordinances are directly fulfilling commitments that this administration made to the council during last year's budget deliberations. And in those deliberations, we committed to bring to you this spring 2 such ordinances. One focused on general public works related needs and one focused on parks related needs. Both lists of potential projects in the bonds derive from a similar 2-step process. First, reviewing city plans, including the comprehensive plan, the Unified Development Ordinance, the transportation plan, the high priority bike network and recommended projects, the climate action plan, the sustainability action plan, the ADA transition plan, the Parks Strategic Action Plan, and MPO, Metropolitan Planning Organization Transportation Improvement Project. And the second step, beyond reviewing those plans, was developing potential projects from the ground up, city department by city department, reviewing their capacities, needs, and timing, and prioritizing based on a number of factors to assemble potential projects for your consideration. You will shortly hear from City Controller Jeff Underwood, who will provide additional fiscal information related to both bonds, followed by an overview of the process by Corporation Counsel Beth Kate. Please note that Mr. Underwood, Ms. Kate, and I are providing general comments about both bonds being discussed. We won't repeat ourselves for the second ordinance, and for each respective bond ordinance, city staff will then briefly describe the specifics of each project, and will all be available for questions. 2 final points from me about the general obligation bonds. First, we are presenting these potential projects to you in priority order as suggestions. We absolutely welcome your view of priorities, as we've welcomed your views about the projects as a whole. We believe they are excellent projects and will advance needed infrastructure in our city plans. And just as a reminder, we will plan to repeat this exercise every 5 years to sustain a steady and consistent investment in these kinds of projects. And second and last, I'll just say these are very responsible investments. When we compare Bloomington's overall debt per capita burden with our peer cities in Indiana, we are right in the middle. And passing these ordinances, we remain right in the middle of that list of per capita debt in Indiana cities. Just like responsible households who borrow for a home or an education, we borrow to make investments that pay off through time, that make us stronger, more equitable, more sustainable. And that's what these will do. I thank you for your support, and I'll hand it now to Controller Underwood and Counsel Kate. Again, I've spoken with each of you and with all of you at various points and at some length about the proposed EDIT in front of you tonight. I appreciate very much your consideration and collaboration on this really important issue to move us forward. We have followed your suggestions of the past couple of years by, in this process, beginning our work not with a particular rate, but by identifying the needs of the community and how to meet those needs, and then calculating an ED-lit local income tax rate that allows us to meet those needs. I will briefly summarize the proposal for you and the public watching, then again hear from our controller and our corporate counsel to outline basic financial and procedural points. We're proposing new revenue based on 4 categories, 4 buckets, if you will, of critical community needs. 2 buckets focus on present pressing needs for city government directly to serve our residents, public safety, and essential services. Public safety needs include salary costs under the recently negotiated Fraternal Order of Police contingent contract, as well as supportive services and critical facility upgrades for fire and police. Essential service needs include clear pressures to increase support for all our other city personnel, as well as deferred and ongoing basic maintenance needs and very real cost increases for supplies and services, as well as inexorable revenue declines in certain areas. Two of the buckets focus on meeting critical future community needs: climate change and equity and quality of life. Regarding the emergency of climate change and the need to mitigate, adapt, and develop resilience, we are proposing significant enhancements to our state-leading public transit system, as well as dedicated annual funding to implement our progressive climate action plan. Regarding equity and quality of life, we are proposing significant investments in improving access to safe and quality housing across our city, both ownership and rental, as well as helping people access good jobs and continuing traditional support for our arts and local food sectors. Finally, we are earmarking funds to help those taxpayers who may face challenges from the LIT itself, an economic equity fund to support those in need. Many of us in this administration are available tonight for questions about the extensive information we have shared about these proposals. We have gotten quite a bit of feedback along the way from you and the wider public on several matters. We have heard concerns, which we share, about the impact of the LIT on those taxpayers least able to afford increased costs. Of course, first we highlight the annual Economic Equity Fund as a substantial cushion dedicated to that. And we do note that for seniors or others on Social Security income, in Indiana and locally, there is no income tax due on Social Security benefits at all, so no impact from ED-LIT on that fixed income source. We heard concerns about potential free or reduced fares for seniors or low-income workers using Bloomington Transit. Those options are very possible, and funding is earmarked for that purpose. We heard interest in having a separate fund for ED-LIT proceeds with annual budget review and fiscal plan. We plan to do just that with a discrete fund and annual budget review. Based on feedback from Council, we made 4 specific adjustments in the proposal since sharing it last month, increasing essential services in 2 particulars, and increasing climate action plan and economic equity fund allocations as well. Some have asked, can the administration not just tighten its belt and save our way to what is needed in city government? We absolutely agree on the imperative to save and tighten belts where possible. We have been doing that intentionally, and a list online shows many steps taken. Just a few examples. We replaced crews of 4 firefighters and a large engine with 2-person crews using a commercial SUV to respond to many medical calls. 5 street sweeping vehicles have been reduced to 2, doing fewer passes on city streets. We started leaf collection later in the year, cutting from 2 passes to 1 per neighborhood, encouraging also residents to compost their own leaves, saving money in leaf collection. In 2004, Bloomington had 1 fleet mechanic for every 45 city vehicles. Today, each fleet mechanic services 65 vehicles, doing more with less. A couple smaller, modest examples perhaps. We eliminated 3 executive-level city vehicles for the mayor, deputy mayor, and parks director are no longer using city vehicles. And as you know, City Hall continues to use an antiquated phone system well over 20 years old that we have not replaced. So we do tighten our belts. Beyond finding savings like these, which will continue, I will just note that the structural need for annual revenue is at a scale that would require drastic reductions in personnel and services to meet essential needs. Controller Underwood will share more details, but I'll just note that we face approximately $5 million in annual basic operating shortfalls in coming years, which is only addressable through new revenue or what I would deem unacceptable cuts in service and personnel. I'll close with two final points. First, we have the capacity very responsibly to make these balanced investments in our future. We are the lowest of all our neighbor counties in our lit rate, and we are very nearly the lowest of all our 20 peer Indiana cities for combined property and income tax rates. We have the capacity to make these essential investments for our future. And finally, regarding timing, we are already beginning the process to prepare the 2023 city budget, and we need to know what resources we have available for that budget. We have a contingent FOP contract that is essential to sign as soon as possible to help us retain and recruit quality police officers. And since we began discussing a little increase a couple years ago, we've already seen the state legislature take steps to make it more difficult to pass a lit. We don't know what the future may hold. With this, our only substantial local ability to determine our local fiscal destiny. So I appreciate your consideration. I'm not going to repeat more that I've already said. I'm going to ask Controller Underwood, followed by Council Kate, to provide their updates, and then we'll back to you. Thank you.